Ask Your Sister to Dance is made possible by a grant from Phillips Trading Company, a Gainesville, Florida company engaged in trade with the Soviet Union and Japan.
In the spring of 1985, a group of American folk dancers and musicians prepared for a unique tour of 5 Russian cities. My name is Natasha Kalishman. This is the story of 2 lives, 2 sisters, 2 cities, of how they came to meet and learn about each other's ways, and how they hoped, one day, to join together in dance. I was working in the Soviet port of Novorossiisk in 1976 as an interpreter and tour guide, and once an American ship carrying grain arrived to that port. Stephen was working then as a seaman on that ship, and we met and we got married, and after several months later we arrived to Gainesville to live.
A few years later we decided to go back to Novorossiisk to visit Natasha's parents and family. And we decided while we were going that we would try to get some kind of cultural exchange started between the 2 cities. And we researched it and found it had never been done this way before, but we approached the Gainesville City Commission and asked them to pass a resolution inviting the city of Novorossiisk to become sister cities with Gainesville. They did so unanimously in June of 1982, and we personally delivered the resolution to the mayor of Novorossiisk, who was quite astonished to see us arrive with these documents. They had never dreamed that 2 American tourists would walk in their door asking to become sister cities. Well, after checking our credentials and seeing that we were for real, they became very excited about the idea of establishing a long-term relationship with the city of Gainesville. And they even suggested certain cultural exchanges that we were going to suggest. So we got off to a very good start. Afterwards, we had 2 delegations from Gainesville go to Novorossiisk in August of 1983 and August of 1984. And among the delegates were ordinary citizens as well as city commissioners, county school board officials, and media people. And this next delegation in August of 1985 is going to be the best, though. And on that delegation, Mayor Gene Chalmers will be participating.
Well, I'm very excited about our sister city programs. As you know, we have 4 sister cities in the city of Gainesville. The most active program is the one with Novorossiisk in the Soviet Union. That is interesting in itself because of the supposed conflict between the 2 nations. We find that the conflict really does not exist at the citizen-to-citizen level. I'm looking forward to a trip to the Soviet Union in August, along with my husband, and particularly along with the Cross Creek Cloggers and the Buck Snort Barn Dance Band. The first trip that went, the first group that went, was by and large political. There was someone from the city commission and someone from the school board, then a few other people just going to look to see what happened. Of course, what happened was they had a lovely time. The second trip had a business flavoring to it, and this was Kelly Phillips going over there to look at the gems, and everyone was kind of interested in what we could do with commerce. The third trip is going to be fun, and so that's the one I selected.
One of our exchanges was that of information about the school systems in both cities. Alachua County School Board Chairman Barbara Gallant went with us in the August '83 delegation, And she was able to meet with school board officials in Novorossiisk, as well as principals, teachers, and the students. They let us go into the schools and watch how they operated while we were there.
The first thing I always think of is the fact that I had all these stereotypes about the Soviet Union, and they were exploded within the, at least the first day, if not the first minute in the Soviet Union, when we went over to Red Square. And my image of Red Square had always been a picture of all the military might up against the Kremlin wall and all these kind of hefty-looking men in their military uniforms and the great war machine. And I was really amazed to find, when I got there, this magnificent St. Basil's Cathedral with its very-colored spires, and it's kind of like a child's dream. It's like being in Disney World. It's marvelous, and it's such a contrast to this Kremlin sign and to the military might. And that was my first real indication of the Soviet love of beauty, which was a whole new concept. The third sign was equally interesting because that was a women's department store, and it's a beautiful building with wonderful filigree stone on the outside, always filled with masses of people. And so you have another feeling too. Just as America, our malls are filled with people, so was Goodman Department Store, which is set up kind of like a mall with separate little areas to buy different items. So that exploded my stereotype right away. We visited several kindergartens, and my view of what a kindergarten is based on what it is in Alachua County or any place in the United States. And of course in America it's for 5-year-olds or 4- and 5-year-olds the year before they go into first grade. In the Soviet Union the term is a generic word, kindergarten, meaning any kind of place where children go between the ages of 1 and 7 before they start school. Many of them, or most of them, are connected with industries so that people can drop their kids off as they go to work, which is a marvelous kind of daycare as well as education. I think that in the Soviet Union, their belief is that the environment that a child has will produce the kind of adult that they want and will also provide equality of opportunity. So they're very, very careful about the environment that they select for these 1 through 7-year-olds. Now, it's not mandatory. About 70% of the kids, I think, attend them, and there are still grandmothers who like to take care of their grandchildren at home. And they do pay to send them. Kindergartens we saw were absolutely marvelous. One of the ones, when you went in and you went up the steps, for the smaller children, they had a second handrail going down the side so that they would have something to hold on to and it wouldn't just be an adult handrail to hold on to, which I thought was marvelous because small children often have difficulty in using adult things. And beautiful, marvelous art, so that the children were surrounded by this. Going into their rooms was amazing too because they not only had one room, which was the playroom, I guess, but they also had a second room, which is a sleeping room, because some of them were there from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. And the time we were there, they were all flaked out on their little beds, fast asleep, looking absolutely angelic, the way kids do when they're asleep. Another thing that was fascinating was their outdoor play area. They go out every single day, and even if it's freezing in the wintertime, they have a covered play area, but they think it's healthy for the kids. On the way over to the play area, they're always learning all the time. So this is a street that's set up so that you have to look to the right one way and to the left the other way. And the children, each time they cross it, they're encouraged to learn how to cross a street so that when they get older, they can begin to walk to school on their own. So that everything is learning. One of the big differences is even with the 5- and 6-year-olds, they're not sitting at desks doing pencil and paper work. They're learning through doing art or singing songs or reciting poetry or talking with each other and learning concepts, so that no matter where they come from, what background they come from, when they start in the first grade, they will all have pretty much the same basic skills of thinking, listening, talking, organizing, and planning their time and so forth. So the kindergarten was really impressive. One of the things that intrigued me was in the geography classroom. They had a globe on every desk. We've never had anything like that. So their geography is very important, and using globes rather than these flat maps that we have in most American classrooms is impressive to me. The other thing was interesting was in the math classroom, they had a unique device which spotlighted formulas on the blackboard, so that rather than a youngster having to get up and write x plus y minus 68,000, blah, 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 you just pressed a button and the formula went up on the board, and they could interact with different formulas and so forth. And it was kind of an interesting item there. I was impressed with that.
When we were preparing to go to Novorossiisk with the delegation in August of 1983, a Gainesville high school art teacher named Ina Jo McKenzie suggested an excellent exchange, that of children's art depicting life in both cities. So we took her up on the idea. We approached the Alachua County School Board and asked that the children in the art classes prepare drawings and paintings about life in the Gainesville area, which they did. They submitted 1,200 pieces. We chose 100 representative samples. After having displayed them in Gainesville, we took them to Novorossiisk, where they were hung in a downtown art gallery so that the people of Novorossiisk could learn about life in Gainesville.
I asked them to think about things that only Gainesville, Alachua County had that Russian students might be interested in seeing. Things that were special in their life, their sports activities, their what they liked to do, their paintings, where they lived, objects, places in Gainesville that represented Gainesville to them. They did it, and they enjoyed doing it, I think. They seemed to. And we got some good results.
One of the factors which has made the Sister City program successful here in Gainesville is that we're non-political. We don't talk about any political issues. We don't support candidates. We leave that to the politicians. And for that reason, a lot of people feel comfortable participating in the program, and especially local politicians. In fact, we've had 2 deputy mayors from Gainesville go with us to Novorossiisk. One of those was Mac McEachern.
I think probably the thing that most people are interested in the Soviet Union, or knowing about the Soviet Union, or want you to hear you say, is something that is a fact, that the people in Russia are more or less just like we are here. They're just people that had their everyday lives, their apprehensions, their concerns, their ambitions for life and things the same as we do. And probably the outstanding thing that I saw in Russia, it appears that they have a phobia of us, the United States, as being someone that's going to attack them. And I think it was quite interesting for them to see us firsthand, to talk to us, and really see that we weren't bad guys after all. I think that by us making that trip there, I hope made some little ingrains into the Russian people that we met, and showed them that we really are, we're friendly people too, and that we need to get together and talk more. And I think that if we could get on the citizen-to-citizen level, it would improve the relations considerably. And I think it would be the impetus to get national conversations going and negotiations, and finally come to some sort of an agreement that would benefit both of us, both peoples. The Soviets lost 20 million people in World War II, and they call it the Great Patriotic War, like we refer to World War II. So I guess anyone you meet on the street in Russia, other than the younger, very younger people, have had some direct loss in their family in that. So in Russia, there are a lot of memorials to the heroes of World War II or the Great Patriotic War. I think there's 11 cities in Russia that they call hero cities because of their involvement in the Great Patriotic War. And so the tour guides, this is the thing that's prominent in their minds, this is the thing they want to show you. So every city that we went to, one of the first things that they would show us was their memorials. And some of the memorials are extremely impressive. Hardly ever did you see one that there wasn't fresh flowers laying on. Not uncommon to see someone in tears standing around one of these memorials. And that made quite an impression on me because we're not that conscious of World War II. Although we had extreme losses at that same time, they must have been devastated terribly by actually having the Germans on their soil.
One of unexpected benefits of Sister City program was establishment of the trade relations with the Soviet Union. A member of our delegation, Kelly W. Phillips, in August 1984, went to Moscow and established contacts with the trading companies in the Soviet Union, and now he's successfully trading.
My first motivation for going to Russia was to look into the diamond business. Russia, the Soviet Union, is a major diamond producer, and they market most of their production through the De Beers Consortium, the South African firm that virtually controls the diamond business. My objective for several years has been to buy directly from them in Moscow and not go through the De Beers organization, and we were able to accomplish that. It took a lot of groundwork to get there, and I'd been working on this for a period of time, and then Stephen and Natasha Kalishman joined forces with me, and we made a diligent effort to search out the appropriate Soviet officials. And we spent several days in Moscow getting to the right people. And to make a long story short, we came away with an open contract to buy diamonds in Moscow. My impression of the Soviet Union, I think, is shared by a lot of people, in that we felt there was a great deal of daily control exercised over the people. We kind of had visions of there being a lot of police and a lot of soldiers. This definitely was not the case. The people seemed to have a lot of freedom to go where they wanted to go. We had all the freedom we could have wanted to go any place. I'm sure there might have been certain off-limits places, but we didn't find them, and we could rent cars, we could take taxis, we could go on the trolleys or take subways. And the girls particularly wore bright-colored clothing. They had ribbons in their hair, and they were dressed very much like our children. And you'd see them hopping and skipping down the street, and you'd see families together and children with their mothers and fathers in parks and so on, and seemed to be fairly satisfied with their lot in life. I think it was the total image of the trip. It was the feeling of the friendliness of the people, the feeling of the willingness of Soviet officials to work with us. At first they were very cold, but as we got to know them a little better, and they found that we were interested in improving relations between the countries, and that we were working in the Sister City program, it seemed to change their attitude a lot, and they actually became helpful and gave us some pointers on how to approach selling them, and because we're looking to export a product to the Soviet Union as well as to buy from them, and they gave us some ideas and thoughts on how to go about it.
was never a group like cloggers going to the Soviet Union. Soviet people love to dance and love to sing, and they want to learn more about American culture. And cloggers will bring American spirit onto Russian soil.
To understand the history of the cloggers, you need to understand the history and growth of old-time music in Gainesville, and that goes back a good many years, but there's never been the tradition of the dance here. And until around 1978, a fellow came to Gainesville and said, "Where's clogging?" And there wasn't any. So we started a class at Santa Fe, and that first class, as bare naked babies, went on stage at the Florida Folk Festival in White Springs. We've been back every year since, because that first one taught the group that it's an enjoyment to dance, and it's an enjoyment for an audience to watch us dance. So we look for the big audiences wherever we can. And Soviet Union, we heard of that one, or said, "There's a pretty big audience." So we went over to Steve and said, "Steve, what about dancing in the Soviet Union?" And he said, "Sure." And I said, "Whoa, that was easy." He said, "Sure, you just got to pay for it." "Oh, how much?" He said, $40,000. I said, "No problem." So we just put our shoes on and we've been dancing, and we're going to get it. We're going to dance there.
It's really nice to be able to share some things with some people from a totally different culture. I've done some international folk dancing and some Russian dancing, and so I'd like to be able to learn some more and see what they think about clogging, because I think it's going to be something relatively new. People have told us that there have been cultural exchanges with ballet companies and things like that, but clogging is going to be something really different that people haven't seen and they ought to be really interested in. So I can't wait. You know, I want to meet some people and share clogging with them.
The Gainesville Novorossiisk Sister City program is the first such program that allows individuals in Gainesville and Novorossiisk to participate in improving relations between the two countries.
This idea was so new in the Soviet Union that we were called American pioneers in the Soviet Union, because we're trying to establish the context between the people of both countries, not between the officials.
I don't think I would have enjoyed visiting the Soviet Union just as a tourist. I think that the value of it was that you got to meet real people and visit real places. What by real, I mean schools and shipyard and person's home, and talk with citizens. And this was a marvelous opportunity. In Krasnodar, we spent 2 evenings talking with young Soviet men who we just met by chance. And we talked and argued and disagreed and agreed, and we came up knowing each other as human beings. And that's a wonderful opportunity, and I hope that this kind of opportunity will become available to many, many Americans. Because if the people of the Soviet Union and America know each other, perhaps we can prevail on our governments to find ways that we can live together in the same world.
I think everyone recognizes that communications are a very basic requirement to human relations. And I think that the more we communicate, the more we talk, the more we understand one another, the better relationship that we would have with the people of the Soviet Union. And hopefully that if we could increase this to the point where we don't have to spend monies and energies on military might, then we could do it something that would, in an area that would benefit humanity more progressively than having to provide a strong defense. We could provide offenses on the other things that affect human beings.
I think the main benefits to the people of Gainesville with regard to the Sister City program are, I guess number one would be the understanding of the Soviet people, as they come to see that people in Novorossiisk are very much like Gainesville. In fact, you could take a group of Novorossiisk citizens, set them down by the library or down on the plaza downtown. Nobody'd ever notice. They look just like us. The ethnic mix is very similar. And I think that's kind of enlightening in itself, because it's hard to dislike somebody that looks like you. And the other thing is that we're getting a little more cultural exchange. We're understanding their thinking in government, their ideologies. And once you understand something like that and understand where they're coming from, it's a lot easier to relate to people.
We expect to go to the Soviet Union and we expect to dance. Simple as that. Dance and play our music. To dance for them in formal performance, but more important, to dance with them, to dance on the same floor and to share the steps that we do and the figures that we do in square dances, and for the fiddlers and the banjo players to sit down with their fiddlers and whatever they got for banjo players, and to share that which is part of our life, our music and our dance. Because that's what we can leave there. We can leave a sense of our traditions, and we can bring home a sense of theirs. A line on a map doesn't stop that kind of exchange. And that's the key to this, is that we go with trust and with open minds, and we come home with hope, our trust intact and our minds opened even further, a sense of open-heartedness and open-mindedness that I don't think we can get any other way.
Ask Your Sister to Dance is made possible by a grant from Phillips Trading Company, a Gainesville, Florida company engaged in trade with the Soviet Union and Japan.